Chapter 2. The Meerkat. 10 minutes later, 4 meerkat heads appeared above ground, each cautiously checking that the coast was clear. As the clan slipped out of their burrow, a fifth head appeared. "Ah, Chuck, you said you were off on an adventure," said Grandmaster One Eye. "Would you like to know what the ancient philosopher, Paul the Other One, said about tigers?" Donny, Jet, and Bruce laughed. Sorry. Donny, Jet, and Bruce sighed. They had heard much of the Grandmaster's so-called wisdom before, but Chuck, who had more respect for the old meerkat, asked, "What did he say, Grandmaster?" He asked the question, "Why do lions and tigers make such good shopkeepers?" "Because they always do a roaring trade." Grandmaster One Eye snorted at his own joke. Do not underestimate the power of laughter on a mission such as this. "Wise words, Grandmaster." Chuck bowed and turned to the others. "Time to go," he said. "I don't get it," said Bruce. "I'll explain it on the way," said Jet. "So, how are we getting to Hong Kong, Chuck?" "By plane, which means I need to get to the airport." "Donny, have you prepared the meerkat?" "Mostly," Donny replied. He ducked behind a rock and pulled out what was little more than a large plank of wood and 2 sets of rickety wheels. Lying on top was a huge scruffy brown suitcase, which made the cart sag in the middle. "What's that?" asked Jet. "That's my luggage," replied Donny. "Why do you always pack so much?" asked Bruce. "All I've brought are a few bags of deep-fried lizard tails for the journey." "This suitcase is far more important things than snacks," said Donny. "Wait till you see my new disguise." "Right," said Chuck, taking charge. "Bruce and Jet, you push first, and Donny and I will steer." "You always say that," moaned Bruce, "and we never get to swap." Chuck ignored him and climbed on the front in Donny. Jet and Bruce stood on their hind legs and held onto the back of the cart. "Let's go," shouted Chuck. Jet and Bruce began to run, pushing the meerkat up a sand dune. At the top, they jumped on board and the cart hurtled down the other side, creating great clouds of sand behind them. They continued in this way through the desert until finally the airport came into view. "Go slow now, we want this thing to last," shouted Chuck. "What did he say?" yelled Jet, who was struggling to hear over the sound of the rattling wheels. "I think he said, 'Don't slow down, we want this thing to go fast,'" replied Bruce, as they powered the cart up the last dune. "Okay," said Jet. "Push." Bruce and Jet ran as fast as they could, then leaped aboard. "I said slow down," yelled Chuck, as the meerkat hurled towards the wire fence surrounding the airport. "Donny, use the brakes." "You know how I said I mostly repaired it," shouted Johnny. "Yes, well, that was the bit I didn't fix." "You've got no brakes," cried Chuck. "Clan of the Scorpion, abandon meerkat." All 4 meerkats leaped off. Jet did a spectacular somersault and a perfect landing. Bruce thudded to the ground with such force that he made a huge hole in the sand. Donny used the suitcase to cushion his fall, and Chuck landed in an expert roll. They all shut up on their hind legs and turned to watch as the cart crashed into the fence, splintering into pieces. "Don't worry," said Donny. "I'll fix it when we get back." Yes, and perhaps next time, Donny, remember to fix the brakes," replied Chuck. "Have you ever boarded a plane you may have noticed has a distinct lack of meerkats running around the airport?" And the clan's nearest airport was no exception, because instead of 4 meerkats slipping through the automatic door, a scruffy brown suitcase entered. It moved closely behind a smart-looking businessman, leading all to assume he was pulling it along with his other bag. No one noticed the 4 pairs of feet that scuttled along underneath, nor the tiny eye holes on the side of the case. Chuck looked up at the departures board. "There's a flight to Hong Kong leaving in 3 hours. Check-in is right there." The suitcase peeled away from the businessman and joined the check-in queue for the Hong Kong flight. Slowly, it shuffled along with the other cases, unnoticed by the old lady in front. "So far, so good," said Chuck. "Now we need to distract this passenger so that we can check in as one of her bags. Any ideas?" "Leave it to me," said Jet, slipping out from under the suitcase. "Jet, wait!" cried Chuck. but Jet had already scuttled up the side of the suitcases in front, to where he could see the old lady's passport sticking out of her coat pocket. He picked it up in his teeth, darted around, dropped it into her other pocket, then returned to the case. See? No problem, said Jet. You could have been seen, said Chuck. You must learn to think before you act. The man at the desk looked up. Next, the old lady reached to get her passport and was surprised to find her pocket empty. That's odd. I'm sure I put it in there. As she checked her other pockets, the scruffy brown suitcase jumped onto the scales beside the desk. Ah, there it is, she said. She gave it to the man and placed her luggage on the scales. Is this everything? Asked the man. Yes, that's all. The man labelled the bags and handed the lady her boarding pass. As the luggage moved off in the conveyor belt, she had no idea that she had just checked in a suitcase full of meerkats. The clan is on its way.